Well, Bill, thanks a lot for having me. Thanks to KET. Thanks to Mr. Vance, Mr. Chandler for joining us tonight in this very important discussion about the future of our country. Of course, our thoughts and prayers go to the folks up in the Northeast, in the area where Hurricane Sandy is set to take landfall here any minute now. I am running for Congress for a cause. Not for a career, but for a cause. And the cause is to save America from bankruptcy and to restore the American dream. That is the key issue facing our country. It relates to our jobs crisis, the fact that our economy is struggling, the fact that 23 million Americans are struggling for work, the worst economy really in 70 years. It also relates to the fact that we have a debt crisis in our country, a $16.2 trillion national debt that is literally threatening to bankrupt our country. It is mortgaging our children's future. And as a new father, what motivates me the most is the future for my new daughter, Eleanor. And I want to make sure that she has the same opportunities that I have had. And what's sad and what's frightening, and I think what is the greatest challenge facing our country, is that for the first time in American history, a majority of Americans believe that the next generation will have fewer opportunities than they've had. So we've got to change leadership in Washington to get the country back on track and restore the American dream. Get this debt crisis under control, get the American people back to work, start creating jobs and opportunity for the American people. The government can create an environment in which the private sector creates jobs. The problem with our current economy and our jobs crisis is that the government is overregulating, overtaxing, and spending too much money, displacing private economic activity. We need to get the government out of the way to create a level of certainty for entrepreneurs, small businesses, and job creators. The reason why our economy hasn't recovered, frankly, is because the government is spending too much, it's incurring too much debt, it's taxing too much, it's over-regulating. We don't have an energy policy in this country.
Where are the over-regulations, Mr. Barr?
Well, the over-regulation is in almost all sectors of our economy today. It's in the financial services sector with Dodd-Frank, preventing community banks from lending money to small businesses and farmers. It's in the healthcare sector with Obamacare, a massive government takeover of 1/6 of the American economy. It is in the energy sector, which has been, unfortunately, enabled by our congressmen, a regulatory approach that is literally bankrupting our signature industry here in Kentucky, the coal industry. We don't have an energy strategy. We're not producing oil and natural gas because we have a Congress and a president that are blocking the Keystone Pipeline, blocking responsible development of our oil and natural gas resources on the Outer Continental Shelf and on public lands. And so we need to get the government out of the way to create a level of certainty so that entrepreneurs, job creators, the private sector is willing to take a risk, willing to invest, willing to hire, willing to get the economy going again. And I too, welcome the new counties into the 6th Congressional District, but I respectfully take exception to the congressman's assertion that people are doing better. They're not. And in fact, in the new counties of the 6th Congressional District, people are really hurting. And I've gone on a jobs tour and listened to the people, particularly the folks in the new counties. In 9 out of the 19 counties of the 6th Congressional District, the unemployment rate is even higher than the national average. And unemployment in this country was above 8% for 43 consecutive months. The only reason that it went below 8% this last month is not because things are getting better, but because things are getting worse, because the labor participation rate is the smallest it's been since the early 1980s. Well, the reason why, one of the primary reasons why we have such a robust auto manufacturing sector in central Kentucky is directly connected to the low-cost electricity that we enjoy. We enjoy some of the lowest industrial utility costs in America. Yes, we have a productive workforce. Yes, Georgetown is located on I-75, and we have a great location in Kentucky. But we also enjoy low industrial utility costs. And it's not just Toyota. It's all the manufacturers around central Kentucky in Madison County, Oconite, which manufactures cables, and manufacturers in Clark County. The reason why those manufacturers are located in Kentucky is in large part attributable to our low-cost electricity, which is directly as a result of our coal industry in East Kentucky. For every one coal mining job that we have in Kentucky, 3.5 additional jobs are directly dependent on the coal industry. The coal industry is connected to the auto industry. And so to say that we're just going to disregard one sector of our economy, they're interrelated. We need to promote all jobs for all people in Kentucky, and the job of the congressman is to get the government out of the way so that we can promote job creation in all sectors, the auto sector, the coal sector, and other sectors of our economy which are so important. What I support is an automobile industry that's robust and that is not hurt by government intervention. If you're going to be for the auto industry, you don't co-sponsor legislation like card check, which Toyota opposed and that Congressman Chandler supported. You don't support legislation that would raise electricity costs for Toyota. The auto bailout bailed out not Toyota, but General Motors and Chrysler.
Didn't need bailing out, did it?
Now the congressman talks about the supply chain and how important that was, and that Toyota wanted to make sure that the supply chain wasn't impaired. Absolutely correct, absolutely essential that nothing like that happened. And no one here wanted GM or Chrysler to be liquidated, to go out of business. But this is a great example, the auto bailout, of the federal government overreaching and engaging in excessive intervention in the private economy when it was flat out unnecessary. Now let me explain my position on this. I believe that the auto bailout was a clumsy approach by the federal government because it just basically threw money at a problem that could have been handled with a much more limited approach by the federal government, and it set a very bad precedent for the future. Look, the American taxpayers are hardworking people. They deserve a government that spends their money carefully, responsibly, and thoughtfully. Explain what would have been a better solution that would have resulted in a stronger General Motors, a stronger Chrysler, and a stronger supply chain. What would have been a better approach would have been a more limited use of TARP funds to provide what's called debtor-in-possession financing to get General Motors and Chrysler through the traditional Chapter 11 bankruptcy process. Look, American companies in financial distress go through bankruptcy reorganization all the time. Macy's, 7-Eleven, airlines like Continental Airlines have done this.
It's the program that Governor Romney suggested could have taken place instead of the one that President Obama put in place.
What I think is the only federal intervention that was required outside the traditional Chapter 11 reorganization process would have been perhaps the need for some TARP funds to be made available for the very limited purpose of providing debtor-in-possession financing in that particular time, in 2009, during the financial crisis. Remember, what was the problem in 2008 and 2009 was a liquidity crisis in our lending markets. It was not required to send billions of dollars of taxpayer monies to these auto companies. And remember, this set a bad precedent because it involved the government upsetting the rule of law, upsetting the traditional bankruptcy laws. What happened was those bailout funds came with strings attached, and the federal government basically said and strong-armed these auto companies. And instead of a normal reorganization process in bankruptcy where secured creditors had priority, the administration, the Obama administration, picked winners and losers and picked their political friends, the United Auto Workers, and placed them in priority over and above secured creditors, the secured bondholders of GM and Chrysler. That was wrong.
Quickly on cap and trade.
Well, if you want to protect manufacturing in Kentucky, if you're truly concerned about the auto manufacturing industry and all of the manufacturing in central Kentucky, and the farmers and the small business owners and the retired folks who are on fixed income and can't afford high electricity bills, then you absolutely do not vote for cap and trade, which would have, if enacted, double electricity costs and cost us 35,000 jobs, according to an independent study. But Congressman Chandler had a chance to stand with Kentucky, but instead stood with Barack Obama and voted for it. And when he was asked about whether or not that was the right vote, he said it was the right vote. Here's why this is relevant to the voters in 2012 in November. It's relevant because the people of Kentucky need to know that if Barack Obama is reelected, and he has said that he will support a cap and trade law going forward in his second term, the people of Kentucky deserve to know where the candidates stand on whether or not they would vote for cap and trade again. And I would certainly vote against it. I would vote against high electricity costs.
Would you vote against it, or you go right ahead?
Well, just really quickly in rebuttal to that, yes, there are competitive pressures in the marketplace from natural gas, just like there is in any marketplace. But if you actually talk to the coal miners and the people in the coal industry, what they'll tell you is we're fine competing with natural gas. We're ready and prepared to compete. But when the federal government has its heavy hand and has discriminatory regulations on this one industry, it makes that industry non-competitive.
What is one regulation that you can cite that has created the conditions that 2,000 people would have lost their jobs?
Well, the enhanced coordination procedures, which are blocking all new surface mining permits in East Kentucky, for example, the water conductivity guidance, the utility MAC rule, the cross-state air pollution rule, the new rule that's being proposed by the EPA to regulate greenhouse gases, which will effectively shut down all new coal-fired power plants. We have lost.
Does the EPA...
We are losing, Bill. We are losing over 200 coal-fired power generating units over the next 3 to 5 years because of Barack Obama and Ben Chandler's war on coal.
Aren't they converting to natural gas?
No, if you talk to
is it the utilities?
Bill, if you talk to the investor-owned utilities, what they'll tell you is that it's cheaper for them to scrub these. To put scrubbers on coal-fired power units than to convert to natural gas. The reason why they're converting to natural gas is because of the federal intervention that is preventing coal-fired power from continuing to exist. The plan that I support, the bipartisan plan that I support, and we need bipartisanship in Washington. So the position on Medicare is a bipartisan plan that I support. It says that if 54 or older, nothing changes. So if you're a current senior, if you're a current beneficiary, or you're near retirement, nothing changes. Now, that's an important point. Congressman Chandler conspicuously omits that fact. But for younger people, Medicare is going bankrupt in 12 years. That's the Medicare trustees' own words. We know it's going bankrupt. So the greatest threat to Medicare is not reforming it for young people my age and for future generations.
And the reform would be?
So what we say is the bipartisan plan is to give future seniors competition and choice. This is modeled after the kind of health care that Congressman Chandler has. It's modeled after the Federal Employee Health Benefits Plan. I say if it's good enough for a member of Congress, it should be good enough for future seniors. And importantly, it preserves the traditional Medicare as an option. So it preserves the Medicare guarantee. That is very, very different from the plan that Congressman Chandler voted for, Obamacare, which cuts Medicare. I do want to talk about the relevance of end-of-life decisions and this Medicare rationing board. You know, the congressman talks about only repealing the bad things in the law. Well, here he had a chance. He had to repeal a very bad provision of the law, which is a Medicare rationing board, 15 unelected bureaucrats in Washington who will make decisions for senior citizens instead of their doctors. The law actually specifies that most of these members, these bureaucrats, cannot be physicians. They cannot be medically trained. And so it seems to me that this was the wrong vote for the people of Kentucky. It was the wrong vote for Congressman Chandler to vote to specifically save this Medicare rationing board. Now, why do we have to repeal the whole thing? Because it is a job killer. The employer mandate is a disaster. It's preventing hiring. It's one of the reasons why the economy is not recovering. You talk to small and medium-sized businesses, and they'll tell you 21 new tax increases in the law. After the Supreme Court exposed Obamacare for what it is, which is a massive tax on middle-income Americans, 6 million middle-class Americans.
Are there any aspects of the current law that you would like to see in a new piece of legislation?
Well, I do want to address the caller because she's experiencing something that my own family experienced. My sister, my older sister, is disabled. She's physically disabled. She grew up with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. She was chronically uninsured. We had trouble because she had a pre-existing condition. But I don't want my sister's health care to be controlled by bureaucrats. I have enough experience as the brother of a disabled sister to know I don't want bureaucrats in charge. I want her orthopedic surgeon in charge. I want her hospital in charge. I want her anesthesiologist in charge. I do not want bureaucrats. So what I would say to the caller is this. We need to deal with pre-existing conditions. My family had to deal with pre-existing conditions. But what we need to do is repeal Obamacare, and we need to replace it with a better system, a system that is designed to give high-risk pools, make high-risk pools available, to lower cost, without growing government, to create association health plans so that you don't have this situation. And also, for people who have difficulty affording health insurance, why not supplement the exclusion for employer-sponsored health insurance with a series of family and individual tax credits? Obamacare makes it more expensive to get coverage. It penalizes you if you can't afford to get your own health care.